The previously comprehensible case has once again become enigmatic. Zhou Ning has to admit that the ghostly apparitions are not mere illusions, but rather a tangible phenomenon. Soon, he discovers three noteworthy aspects in the witness testimonies. Firstly, both Lao Li and Chen Wen encountered the ghostly apparitions in secluded corners of the Forbidden City, not far from each other, but apart from the main cluster of buildings. Secondly, according to their recollections, the ghostly sightings occurred during thunderstorms. Thirdly, although the apparitions manifested without warning, they seemed to be attached to certain objects, such as ancient paintings, pieces of paper, or walls. Zhou Ning decides to delve deeper into these details as a starting point for his investigation. He faintly senses that this is not a typical case. In the usual sense, there are no victims, no suspects, and no significant losses incurred. If he continues to rely on traditional investigative methods, he fears that he will never unravel the mysteries behind these ghostly apparitions. He needs the assistance of various experts, particularly those versed in history and physics. However, the precondition for all this help is for him to present sufficient evidence and convince both the Forbidden City and the police department of the reality of these ghostly manifestations. After careful consideration, Zhou Ning decides to disclose his plans to his immediate supervisor, Director Liu. Unfortunately, Director Liu believes that Zhou Ning is making a big deal out of something trivial. He merely contacts the security department of the Forbidden City, which allows Zhou Ning unrestricted access for his investigation. However, Lao Li hasn't been to work for several days. Apparently, the institute's leadership became concerned about his mental state and arranged for him to take some time off. The case seems to have taken on an even more enigmatic nature. Zhou Ning cannot deny that the ghostly apparitions are not mere illusions, but rather a reality that exists in some form. This discovery unsettles him and raises more questions about the true essence of the case. He begins to meticulously study the witness testimonies in the hope of finding some clues. Within the witness testimonies, Zhou Ning uncovers three intriguing aspects. Firstly, both Lao Li and Chen Wen encountered the ghostly apparitions in remote corners of the Forbidden City, far away from the main complex of buildings. Secondly, both sightings occurred during thunderstorms. Lastly, the apparitions seemed to require attachment to certain objects, such as ancient paintings, pieces of paper, and walls. Zhou Ning decides to use these findings as a breakthrough point and continue his pursuit of the truth. He has a faint sense that this case is not a conventional one. So far, there are no victims, no suspects, and no substantial losses incurred. If he proceeds with the investigation using traditional methods, he fears that the mysteries behind the ghostly apparitions will remain forever elusive. He realizes that he needs the assistance of various experts, particularly those well-versed in history and physics. However, all of this hinges on his ability to provide sufficient evidence that will allow the Forbidden City and the police department to accept the existence of these ghostly manifestations. After careful consideration, Zhou Ning decides to confide in his immediate superior, Director Liu, about his plans. However, Director Liu dismisses Zhou Ning's concerns as an exaggeration. He merely coordinates a brief communication with the security department of the Forbidden City, granting Zhou Ning unrestricted access for his investigation. However, during this time, Lao Li has been absent from work for several consecutive days. This is because the institute's leadership is concerned about his mental state and has deliberately arranged for him to take some time off. Zhou Ning feels somewhat disappointed by Director Liu's reaction, but he is not discouraged. He understands that unraveling this mystery will require more time and effort. He is determined to delve deeper into the investigation, searching for additional clues, while also keeping a close eye on Lao Li's condition to ensure his continued involvement in the case. The truth of this suspenseful case lies hidden within the corners of the Forbidden City, and Zhou Ning is determined to unveil its veil. Chen Wen's concerns seem to be justified. Before everything becomes clear, Zhou Ning decides not to involve her any further. He understands that he can only continue the fight alone from now on. He starts collecting weather forecasts from the recent days, narrowing down the possibilities of thunderstorms. His plan is to return to the scene on those days. hoping to encounter the mysterious apparition. To find a suitable surveillance spot, Zhou Ning retrieves the architectural map of the area. Surprisingly, he finds another building marked between the courtyard where Chenwen works and the palace where the apparitions appear. However, in his memory, that location was simply an empty space. The staff who provided the blueprint explains that it is actually an underground chamber exclusively used to store paintings and calligraphy from the Southern Song dynasty. Due to the precious national treasures housed inside, it is rarely accessed, hence its concealed appearance from the outside. Considering it as a treasure trove for invaluable artworks and perpetually sealed, Zhou Ning naturally believes that hardly anyone could infiltrate it. Up until this point, he still leans towards the possibility of the ghostly apparitions being artificially created. After surveying the surrounding environment, Zhou Ning starts his plan of patiently waiting for a turn of events. However, several days pass by, and the forecasted thunderstorms have yet to arrive. The turning point occurs on one afternoon when the weather forecast predicts clear skies, which indeed held true for the morning. However, in the afternoon, the sky suddenly turns gloomy. As Zhou Ning opens the window, a strong wind rushes into his office, roaring by his ears. He realizes that rain is imminent, and quickly tidies up the papers on his desk, rushing out of the police station to the Forbidden City at the fastest speed possible. When Zhou Ning takes position under a palace's eave, darkness has already enveloped the surroundings. This surveillance point has been meticulously chosen, allowing him a clear view of the outer wall of the courtyard where Chenwen and the painting restoration team are located, with an unobstructed sideline towards the empty space with the underground chamber. Zhou Ning puts on his thermal imaging goggles, ready to be alert for anything that might emerge from the courtyard or the palace. Clad in optical camouflage, he silently lurks in the shadows of the palace, blending seamlessly with the environment. As the rain intensifies, people begin to leave the courtyard with umbrellas when their workday ends. At this moment, Zhou Ning's police goggles receive an incoming call. "Officer Zhou, I saw your police car parked outside." The call was from Chenwen, who probably didn't expect Zhou Ning to return. Excitedly, she asked, "Where are you? Have you made any discoveries?" "Let's not rush. I still need to confirm some things," Zhou Ning replied succinctly. "By the way, have you seen the little figure on the paper recently? Have your colleagues exhibited any unusual behavior?" Zhou Ning paused, assuming that there were no other people around Chenwen, and continued his inquiry. "Everyone seems fine, except for me being on edge all the time. Today's weather is similar to the day I first saw the ghostly apparition. I was nervous for a long time, but nothing happened," Chenwen said with a bitter smile. "All right, the rain has stopped. You should go back now. I will continue investigating this matter," Zhou Ning reassured her before ending the call. Zhou Ning waited until the late hours of the night. He first inspected every corner of the palace, then walked towards the courtyard, patrolling along the walls. The furnishings inside the palace remained as usual, and there seemed to be no traces of anyone entering or leaving, apart from the night shift personnel. The courtyard had only one entrance, securely locked, and no suspicious footprints were found outside the walls. It seemed that he would return empty-handed today, but Zhou Ning wasn't discouraged. He possessed ample patience. However, a thought crossed his mind. Did his presence alarm the ghostly apparition? Although his optical camouflage provided excellent concealment, it was not yet perfected to achieve complete invisibility. He began to wonder if this apparition possessed an extraordinary level of observation. Just then, a sudden transformation occurred. The rainwater that had not yet dried formed numerous puddles of varying sizes on the empty space, reflecting the crescent moon like an insect's compound eyes. A black silhouette emerged, engulfing the moon's reflection. It leaped between the puddles, and with each movement, its contours sharpened, gradually transforming into the likeness of a skull.